How did the British Empire conquer 24% of the Earth's surface? They are, after all, the world's biggest empire in history. Some estimates say they had 26% of the world's surface. And it's funny because I oftentimes talk about the Mongolian Empire. Obviously, what the Mongols were able to achieve back in the 13th century was amazing. Not to mention it was all contiguous. But just in terms of raw square miles, the British Empire completely dwarfs them. And I think they got to their peak in 1921. Okay, but we're going to talk about basically how the British were able to do it. And here we go, right? Immediately, it kind of starts off that they're an island. A lot of explanations in history comes down to just geography in general, and I would say this is probably in the top 3 most important factors that allowed them to get as big as they did. Islands are OP. And in a way, even the US is kind of on an island, which many people consider this country to be the strongest in the world right now. We're basically just as isolated as an island itself because we've got 2 oceans around us. And like father, like son, obviously our dad, Britain, got to benefit by having an ocean surround them. Obviously, continental Europe wasn't that far away from their island, but it was enough throughout history to make a significant impact.
As an island nation, Britain wasn't threatened by many invasions, which facilitated
it did happen like the Vikings, but
heavily funded and equipped Royal Navy.
This is key. Fundamental to British defense, in order to keep their island safe, they had to build a navy. Their #1 priority was never really their army, it was always the boats. And of course, the best offense is a good defense, so building those boats to defend their island also came in handy when conquering other islands, or just other land masses in general.
And equipped Royal Navy enabled the British to dominate sea routes. The initial empire's focus on trade over conquest created a robust commercial system. They monopolized trade in different regions of the world, as colonization often began with trading posts on coasts and later followed by going deeper into the territories. They did it pretty much all around the world. They had 26% of the Earth's surface. They did it everywhere. You start off with a little, and then you keep taking more. Revolution provided better technology and
Industrial
more
Revolution,
resources.
of course, that was a big factor. They were the first to industrialize, which started all the way back in like the 1750s. France, their biggest rivals, wouldn't really make a whole lot of progress on that until the 1840s.
Britain was able to produce better and faster.
So that helps.
The empire's control expanded,
especially helped, I was going to say, in South Asia,
leveraging its naval power and
then of course during the grab for Africa, imperialization of this entire continent.
Strong administrative frameworks while exploiting local divisions.
They were very good at that, exploiting local divisions, divide and conquer. Another place I'm thinking about that really benefited from being an island, Japan. It helped them for centuries. They were even able to avoid the Mongol invasion just because they were an island. And then obviously they too were pretty successful when they started their own empire, relatively speaking. But still, no one can match the British. They were kind of the first to really do it. Which there was Spain, yes, but they didn't have the benefit of being an island, which kind of ended up leading to their downfall. Fun fact, the British Empire almost having the same amount of square kilometers as the moon. The British Empire actually triumphed after the Napoleonic Wars with its 2 main competitors out of the game, Spain and France. It's kind of like how the US benefited after World War II. So many of their former competitors just got completely destroyed. In the MCU, they also conquered most of the galaxy since all the aliens seem to be able to speak English. The video is by Knowledgia, one of my favorite YouTube Shorts channels. We might as well get into this next. Why did the Spanish Empire collapse?
The enormous
I
empire
think we
faced costly
kind of covered it, but there's going to be some more details than just the things that I said, the Napoleonic Wars. Because in a way, Spain was a lot like the Ottoman Empire. They were the dying man of Europe, even though they continued to exist for a while. Their death kind of was inevitable.
Faced costly wars, inefficient governance,
the
and
Habsburgs,
heavy reliance
that's what we're looking at that map right there.
American colonies.
It's scary because they were so huge. Everyone loves to talk about the Spanish colonial holdings in America, but look at just the Habsburg house in general. They had so much here in continental Europe.
Governance and heavy reliance on silver from its American colonies.
Reliance on their colonies.
Spain faced competition from other European powers and conflicts with England
also Portugal.
and France, which
Portugal wasn't as big of a rival power. Remember, there was an Iberian Union for a little bit there. Still something they had to contest with.
Their resources and manpower.
They kind of stretched themselves out way too thin.
Managed and difficult to defend.
They had a completely different colonial philosophy than the British and French did. The memes really like to talk a lot about that.
Managed and difficult to defend. After Napoleon invaded Spain,
that was the death blow.
By 1833,
but
most of the Spanish
it was even
Americas
before
were
that.
lost. And by the end of the century, after the
and then the Americans
War,
I mean, they were, I don't even really know if we could technically still, they were an empire, but a paper empire in the late 1890s. The U.S. just went and took away literally their last stuff, including the Philippines.
And the Philippines.
There it is.
The collapse of the Spanish Empire was a result of economic decline, internal strife, external conflicts, and the inability to effectively manage its possessions.
Look at how big how do you manage all that? Especially at the time, too, because remember, they got really big really early. Just look at how much they had in the year 1650. This is insane. In contrast, this is what the British Empire had, not even in 1650, but 50 years later. This is the year 1700. So they still were just really getting going. I feel like Spain is basically that classic story of someone peaking in high school. A lot of people upset at the use of the word colonies here instead of this. Still, I don't see why that makes a difference. At the end of the day, they still lost it. Long story short, England's fault. How did the U.S. annex so much territory so fast? Well, manifest destiny? That's such a dumb answer. There's lots of theories here, but I'm excited to see what they have to say.
After the U.S. got its independence, the Treaty of Paris in
1776
expanded their territory to the Mississippi
very quickly.
River.
We're gonna buy Louisiana, get Florida from the Spanish, fight a war with Mexico, destroy a bunch of natives. There's the gold rush, immigration, moving people outward. There's just so many ways to answer this.
In 1803,
there
the
you
U.S.
go.
bought Louisiana from France.
Now that's probably the biggest thing, honestly. We just bought all that land. It was just ours. We didn't even have to fight for it.
Doubled the country's size,
stretching
from the Mississippi to the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah.
In 1819, the Adams-Onis Treaty
Bam,
with Spain
Florida.
added Florida. In 1845,
Texas
was accepted
War
into
with
the
Mexico.
Union after it seceded from Mexico. This sparked the Mexican-American War, which concluded with granting the U.S. the present-day Southwest.
And then bam, yes. And then, we're going to have to talk about the 49th parallel with Canada here. And then obviously when we purchased Alaska from Russia.
The Oregon Trail and subsequent treaties in 1846 secured the Oregon Territory from Britain. The Gadsden Purchase in 1850.
The way this video is set up, it's like we kind of just bought a lot of it. We didn't, but we did, I guess, at the same time. If you look at it like that, we just bought our way to an empire.
53 acquired additional
but there was
land
so
in
many,
southern
there's so many wars that are missing. We did talk about one, obviously, with Mexico.
And New Mexico. Alaska was purchased from Russia.
That was purchased, though.
And Hawaii was annexed in 1898.
Jeez, did anyone else just purchase land like this that fast? I don't think so. The largest land purchase in history is that Louisiana purchase. We took that from the French while we were a customer. We didn't really take it. Yeah, literally the top 5 purchases by territory is all U.S. This Russian-Swedish one is pretty significant, though. Remember that Mexican-American War technically counts as a purchase. We took the land but gave them money for it. I guess this really shouldn't be that surprising. This was the New World after all. It was just land to go for. The short answer is money. Every nation that had a stake in North America was broke or going broke around the time. Hey, they're selling. Any president at the time? Yes, buy it. Another key factor I don't see mentioned enough here is we had a very big enemy to thank for allowing us to get so big. And shocker, that enemy was Britain, which Britain was most people's enemies in the 1800s. At the end of the day, most people around the world were just glad that the British weren't taking even more land, so they'd gladly sell it to the USA. That is quite literally the story of why Russia sold us Alaska. Russia selling Alaska is still one of the greatest blunders of all time. It's actually kind of funny because if you compare that to the land we took just due to war, it's very, very insignificant. I should probably rephrase that to peace treaties with just other European powers. The conflict I can think of where America took a dub and just straight up took the other nation's land, the Spanish-American War, we ended up losing 2 out of the 3 here, Cuba and the Philippines. We still only have Puerto Rico to this day. So again, overall, the peace treaties weren't really the thing why we were growing that fast. Why did the Protestant Reformation happen? Oh, this is going to be a good one. I was in a big old 30 years war in there. A lot of people were changing sides too. Love that aspect of it. Just depended on the decade.
Martin Luther, a German monk, nailed his 95 theses to a church door in Wittenberg, challenging
how it all
Catholic
begins.
Church practices, especially the sale of indulgences. Luther's ideas quickly spread, aided by
Germany, the Nordic
press,
countries,
sparking widespread religious and political upheaval across Europe. Key figures like John Calvin in Switzerland and Zwingli also promoted reforms, advocating for a return to biblical foundations and rejecting Catholic corruption and rituals. The Reformation gained a lot of support from German princes, princes and other European leaders.
You also got, the British Isles in there.
Pope and the Holy Roman Empire. The movement fractured the unity of the Catholic Church, leading to the establishment of many Protestant denominations. It also created the Catholic Counter-Reformation, which aims to reform the Church from within and was somewhat successful, but not enough to stop the Protestant Reformation.
Yeah, there's a split there. Little schism. All the religions, I feel like, gotta have a schism. And then the schisms have a schism. I do like the 30 Years' War because it's one of those rare wars where it's actually an accurate number. It was exactly for 30 years. Obviously, the lasting impact would be felt forever. I mean, this changed history, obviously. And I feel like I don't talk about this conflict enough. It's such a big deal. Why did Czechoslovakia collapse? Oh boy. Well, I hope we get into the very beginning of why Czechoslovakia became a country in the first place. That's all down to World War I.
After being created in 1918
there we go.
from Austro-Hungarian provinces,
we forced them to collapse.
And Slovakia, it first collapsed when Germany occupied and separated it in World War II.
Well, yes, so it was born out of World War I, collapses briefly in World War II, gets revived after the Soviets come in.
After the war, it became a communist country.
There you go.
The mass
it's a communist country.
In 1989. During this period of change, some of the underlying tensions between Czechs and Slovaks resurfaced. Being historically distinct with different languages and political preferences.
I mean, we kind of just put them together. World War I just kind of put them together like that.
Slovaks and Czechs struggled to agree on many reforms. Being the larger group, Czechs often dominate.
Imagine like just someone coming in and saying like, the French or the Germans, you now have to form one country. You got to be together. You got to like it. Don't fight too much. Like, it's kind of ridiculous.
The political landscape, while Slovaks felt somewhat marginalized. The absence of external threats like Germanization and Czechia and Hungarianization in Slovakia, which had previously united them, allowed these differences to be more visible. All of this led to a peaceful divorce in 1993, despite polls showing many citizens favored unity.
I like how the Czechs got to keep the Czechoslovakian flag too. It was only Slovakia that had to come up with a new one after the divorce. We specifically promised Slovakia we wouldn't use this flag, but we did anyways. But yeah, this shows that not all Frankenstein nations work. The fact it split apart peacefully says a lot about these people. Yeah, collapse, I don't know if that word really works here. They decided to do it voluntarily. As a Slovak, we still love the Czechs. If anything, we never collapsed, just gone our own separate ways. That's a beautiful way to look at it. But yeah, please go subscribe to Knowledgia. And here are my patrons.
I finally escaped from Drew's basement.
Lucas, the Canadian Christmas trees. Honk, Argentinian Grandpa, DOOCHBAGGINS. Imperial Japan flag is the same as modern Japan. Koyle, please stop making this mistake. Archaeology. aPhatNarwhal. Carmel Pavlik. DaBeautiful-MEGAN-Underwood. Fredrik Tibblin. InquisitorXarius. Tambre. Mexican.